Welcome. You've splash landed into this Prosecco-laden podcast, straight into the woo-woo pool with the crew of Ohm-g. We're just a simple group of tragically imperfect and highly empathic BFFs, exploring a wide range of atypical topics with humor, grace, and curiosity. This is Ohm-g. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Right now, where we sit, it is the end of summer and temperatures are crazy high all over the place. Attitudes are wonky, dreams are bizarre, timelines are shifting, and we're about to vent about all of that. So grab a seat, join us. You're here with the crew of
Ohm-g, the podcast. Welcome back, y'all.
Who wants to start with their craziness? Because what's been going on lately is off the charts.
I can throw a few things out that maybe will resonate with some people out there. Strange occurrence. The other night, I woke up from a really anxiety-ridden, stressful dream and bit off every one of my fingernails down to the bloody nub. I could not go back to sleep. I was worried about everyone and everything. Been having a little anxiety, been having a lot of visions of bad things happening, and I think it all comes from a stress core because I'm pretty positive and optimistic overall. I think we're getting downloads. I think we're getting tweaks and God taps. And today we're just here to share our experiences. So who's next?
Well, I can share my mess up of the day of being 3 hours ahead, 3.5 actually, of our next guest that we're going to have on the show. So it's just been, energy has just been crazy. And I feel like that Lionsgate portal was really strong for a lot of people. And, you know, Chandra and I do the Woo-Woo Fridays and do our readings, and everybody was focused on career and job stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty weird because that's what I've been focused on too. And then I had a client yesterday and that's what she's focused on. It's like what she should do for her career and money and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a theme right now. So, you know, if you're thinking about that kind of stuff, that's going to create a lot of collective stress for not only yourself, but for everybody else too. Because I know I've been feeling that push. And so I decided to go back to school because that would be fun, right?
She got froggy and she jumped, y'all.
I jumped. And within 5 days, like everything fell into place for registering for classes, getting financial aid. I mean, it was just like bam, bam, bam. So I feel like that's where I'm supposed to be right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if everybody is focused on career, then there's a stability, security, kind of a feeling of lack of that particular feeling. People don't feel secure. So they're, what about my career? Am I going to keep my job? Am I going to get a new job? Is this new thing going to work out?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why they're so focused on it.
Will my job even be relevant as the world blows up around me?
Right. And so, yeah, Brenda's 3 hours early for the interview. We thought that the person was in Central Time and she's really in Pacific Time. So there's that. And
on Eastern Standard, y'all. So.
And this morning as well, I drive to Brenda's house 3 times a week. I mean, come on. This morning, I missed my turn. I missed my exit. I had to go like up and around and back down and then around again and back down. It took me like a 15-minute drive. Took me 45 minutes this morning because I just could not get oriented to where I physically was and where I needed to go.
Even muscle memory is off.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Absolutely. And I mean, it was one of those things where it just makes you so nervous and so angst up. You know, you're feeling all the things. You're feeling like, how stupid am I? How could I let this happen? I know better than this, you know, and it was wild. That energy was very strong.
So I was listening to Joanna the Healer, who is going to be our guest that you are all here for 3.5 hours early. And I was listening to her latest one on the God stuff, and it talked about how if we don't heal the stuff within ourselves, that it projects into the outer world and vice versa. So our job is to work on creating what we want inside of ourselves. And I know I've been like so stressed out, and I don't know if collectively I'm like contributing to everybody else's like stress. And I don't know how to get that under control so that I don't feel stressed, like how to heal that within myself or that anxiety, because that's what she talked about. Like the only work we can do is to work on ourselves, because then that affects the collective and helps everybody else if everybody would just focus on doing their own stuff.
Absolutely.
And with 7 planets retrograde and Mercury about to join them, I mean, that is a time to go within and go with the flow as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. That's what I've been working on in therapy lately. Hashtag doing the work, as they say, is protecting my peace. And so because I easily stress out, tons of control issues as like coping mechanisms and whatever. And a lot of mine has kind of been about like creative stuff and like writing and things like that. But now that like school, oh my God, it starts back tomorrow. Send prayers and Prosecco. Thankfully, I'm not with kids for another week, and I mean, no one wants to be a middle school teacher anyways, but in North Carolina, it's like real bad. And so my school specifically, I think over the summer has lost 8 people, like they've left.
Like teachers?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Did they replace them?
Some of them, like maybe 2 of them, but one of the replacements that got hired already quit. So that tells me that the teachers who are there are going to be covering a lot of classes during our planning periods.
Yeah.
It tells me that the kids are going to be wild because there's not that consistency. There's not a person that's there, the same person every day. It's difficult enough to get substitutes because who wants to be a substitute teacher? And so on my team of teachers, there's like 4 people. It's myself who teaches English, and then a social studies teacher, a math, and a science teacher. The science and math teachers both left within the last 2 weeks. So it's me and the history teacher and 2 open positions. Like it's bananas. So I'm trying to remember that as everything's crumbling and on fire around me, that I can only control what I can control. And that's really not shit. So I'm kind of learning through all this, like through the Lionsgate and stuff, to really surrender, like, and just try to surrender control.
I'm going to loan you a spirit guide.
As a former teacher, I feel the anxiety. I'm like, I can't breathe right now. I'm like, oh my God, how are you going to do this?
Yeah.
How are your fellow teachers going to do this? Because it's been years since I've been in the classroom, but I know that anxiety. And oh my God, protection bubbles and everything for you.
Thank you.
Because it's going to be a rough year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
This is Chandra, and it's funny that you were talking about trying to control because of Joanna the Healer and her last video. She was talking about rigid thinking and surrendering. So I just started journaling on like rigid thinking, on the things that are my absolute. Like I have to do this. And it's funny because everything when I got down to the bottom came back to fear of failure.
Mm-hmm.
And fear of failure means if I succeed, then I've controlled every piece and everything that can happen. And so it's really fear of loss of control.
Mm-hmm. Amen, sister.
Preach.
So that energy's in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of energy.
Wow, it said, yes, I am in the room.
God. And little notification alerts also are stressful, right? Like,
Yes.
it could be a text message. It could be a vibration. It could, we're good. We still recording?
Yeah, I don't know what just happened. It was really weird.
A God tap.
Spirit said, y'all ain't got no control, so just sit down and relax.
Exactly. So I think maybe that's kind of like a theme is what I'm hearing from each person, like whether it's creative stuff or the personal stuff, career stuff, whatever, is like, we're really not in control of it. Chandra thought she was in control of how she was getting to Brenda's this morning, but she accidentally went around her ass to get to her belly button.
Evidently.
We make plans and spirit laughs.
Right.
But it seems like it's not just us.
Right.
Like you were saying, when we do the Friday things, you know, we chat a little bit and people are commenting and stuff, and it's everybody. It's like everybody feels flipped over, like not just affected, but just
Turtle on the back.
yeah, completely 180 to not know what to do about it. So, yeah, to Cam's point, everything's in retrograde. We just had the 8/8, the Lionsgate portal. There was a new moon during the Lionsgate portal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just...
It was a full moon, right?
It was...
Because we're at the new moon
It
right
was
now.
the full moon during the portal, and now we're in the new moon a couple of days ago. So.
Yeah. So it was, So that energy had to be...
And it was a super full moon, too.
Yes.
Yeah. And it
So
was...
Giddy up, y'all.
And it wasn't the blue moon, but it was the first of this month is going to have 2 moons, 2 full moons. And like, what do we think is collectively going on for everybody to be feeling this, scarcity mindset, this loss of security, to be so concerned about that, to be so concerned about losing control, lack of control, not being able to forge where your life is going and having to surrender to that? Like, what's the impetus for all of this?
Well, this is Brenda Sue here, and I got some thoughts on that. So I think that we are
Shocker.
I know, right? I think we are all upgrading. And energetically, as more people raise their vibration, then that's felt collectively, like we were talking about earlier. So, I'm raising my vibration, you're raising yours, and maybe that person isn't. So that's why we're feeling like everything is shifting and changing, and nothing is going to be the same if we allow it. So we got to let go of these things that we think that we have control over and just let it go. So that's why I think it's coming up so much right now, because it's important to let that shit go.
Yes.
I was going to say, as you both were talking earlier, I just kept getting the word purge, like not like the horror movie, but like getting rid of these issues around like control or a scarcity mindset or safety and security.
It's all limiting beliefs. Like that we are in control is a limiting belief.
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that we don't have control over anything. The only control you have is over your reaction to things.
Right.
So you can't control the outer world. You can only control your inner world. And that's the work that Joanna's talking about doing, about
shadow
healing yourself.
Right. And let's assume that's exactly what's happening, that energy is changing, energy is leveling up. Well, your body is going to have to get used to that. There's going to be a different energy. It's going to have to incorporate and learn how to function on that new energy. And there are all kinds of symptoms that can come with that. And one of them is like brain fog, not remembering things, feeling like you're going crazy, like your thoughts aren't matching the actions that you want to take. That can really mess with your mind if you are not cognizant of actually what's going on. Once you can go, okay, spirit, I'm just leveling up here. Let's work on the chemistry. Let's get it right, please. But I think that kind of amplifies because you just feel so out of control.
To this whole conversation, before we started recording this episode, Allie pulled a card and read us sort of the definition and the meaning of it. And it's a beautiful card, but we're all like, okay, and so it didn't resonate. And I think it was Ro or Cam, one of you said, well, maybe it'll make sense later. And Allie, her eyes just lit up as you were both talking and is pointing in the book. And it's like, holy crackadoodle. So would you read that portion that you just pointed out to me, Allie? Because that was spot on.
Yeah. So the oracle deck that I have is the Celtic Tree Oracle. And I pulled the Hawthorn, and it says, Hawthorn in a reading. Hawthorn asks you to spend some sacred time in preparation for a meaningful birth experience. You are encouraged to clean up your act, let go of what no longer serves you, and treat your body, mind, and soul with sacred respect. This is a time for spring cleaning, which not only applies to your home and work environment in your garden, but also to your inner environment.
And I've been treating myself with pizza, wine, and caffeine, dang it.
Amen, sister.
Well, but for the past 3 weeks, I have had the urge to just every drawer, every closet, things I haven't touched in a year.
Look out.
Yeah. Trash can, trash can, trash can. I mean, it's like a physical need to do this. That I'm
having a craving to clean our baseboards.
Oh,
what
my
the
Lord.
hell?
Clorox wipes are great for that.
Who does that? Yeah, they are.
Okay.
But I magic erased our countertops in the kitchen the other night, and I was like, who is this? It's like, oh, it's because you're 30, bitch. That's just what you do now.
And I was looking at deep cleaning videos on YouTube.
I've been following Swedish death cleaning on Facebook, and it's brilliant.
Wait, are you
I
serious?
watch hoarders to scare myself.
Me too. Also, my 600-pound life to scare myself, but that's another episode.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, speaking of this energy that's kind of off the charts, the other night I was kind of just sitting there thinking about it, and the word radical came into my mind. And the first thing I remembered was radical forgiveness. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about why everything seems so radical. And we are back. Thank you for staying with us here on the Ohm-g podcast. And today we were talking about just crazy energy and everybody experiencing really a kind of off the chart kind of things that are way out of the norm. And we were talking about how that feels so radical. The shift in the energy is like the timelines merging and the whole thing. So just out of curiosity, I sat down with, because radical forgiveness was what popped into my mind. And a lot of us have done the radical forgiveness worksheet. Like we did it at a little party somewhere. So, we're all kind of familiar with that concept. And so, radical forgiveness. What else is radical? How many things out there are radical? You guys, radical behaviorism, radical empathy, radical acceptance, radical forgiveness, radical inclusion, radical honesty, radical healing, radical kindness, love, obedience, pacifism, and universalism. And that was just me going radical A, search, radical B, search. And so that's 12 items, 12 things that identify itself as radical. So
Extreme is another buzzword too.
Yeah.
Everything is amped up.
Yeah. So why is everybody associating or resonating with radical, extreme right now? I mean, rhetorical question, obviously, but
Feeling of powerlessness.
Yeah.
I get also that if something is radical, it feels like it's like you're taking the bull by the horns, like you're in charge of it or you're in control of it. So I'm radically forgiving this person for doing this to me, or I'm radically empathizing with this person and their experience or whatever. And so it kind of like, I don't know, like tickles your ego, I guess, in a good way. Like you're like, well, I get that you forgave her, but did you radically do it? I don't know.
So does that go back to the issue of control and thinking that we have control, and maybe we all feel like we're losing control? So that's why everything has become so extreme and radical, because the collective is trying so hard to hold on to control.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel like we have to do it radically to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have to do it times 10 for it to quote unquote take or whatever.
To count. Yeah. I feel that deeply.
So where does that come from? Like within yourself? Because I think we have to look at that first.
How do we all get to the point where control is that necessary for us to feel safe?
Right.
Like, where does that come from?
So I looked up the definition of radical, and according to the Oxford Dictionary, in an adjective form, it means especially of change or action relating to or affecting the fundamental nature of something, far-reaching or through a radical overhaul of the existing regulatory framework. So that's the adjective. Then the second thing says advocating or based on thorough or complete political or social change, representing or supporting an extreme or progressive section of a political party. Then the noun for radical is a person who advocates through or complete political social reform, or a member of a political party or a part of a party pursuing such aims. And then it says chemistry, a group of atoms behaving as a unit in a number of compounds. So radical has so many definitions.
But that very first one that you read sounds like what we're all going through.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally.
Go big or go home.
The
Get noticed
change
while
and
you do it.
the change and the up leveling, and so that makes sense. I was doing some shadow work the other day, and I've come to identify that there are certain things in my life that I'm very, very firm on.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I do something, even if it's fun, it has to have an outcome. Like the things that I consider fun are like a DIY project, but that has to have an outcome. You know, it's going and get a massage, but that's relaxation. That has an outcome. Right, right. You know, it's not just like going and laying in the hammock. It's not a thing that shuts me down for a moment and lets me relax. For it to be fun, I have to have an outcome. So I was kind of journaling on that, like, why am I so rigid about this? And what I got is it came back to fear of failure. And I did a couple of other ones just, you know, because I'm trying to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of them, after asking, like, what is this? Why is this? Where does this live? What does it come from? Everything got back down to fear of failure. Like I did 3 or 4 of them. Every one of them came back to fear of failure.
Wow.
And that's control.
Yes, 100%. So maybe that's the collective energy right now. That's like what we need to work through as individuals and then as society as a whole.
I mean, could it be that collectively we're getting close to surrender? And this is the last vestige of the meat suit going, no.
Death throes.
Exactly. That it's just holding on for dear life and it's making us all feel said way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 100% that is possible.
Buckle up, buckaroos. You know, it's either on the wagon or you're off. And it's, I don't know. A lot of what you just were talking about, Chandra, really resonates with me. And I think there's like a component where like I'm very like, you know, be kind to people. And I teach my kids all the time, like you can't control what others do or say. You can only control yourself or whatever. But all of us have like judgments attached to things, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so whether it's around finances or around appearance or whatever. And so I think we talked about it on the podcast, but I have moved back to my hometown, which is very small. And I love it. But we don't have like a Target, you know, we don't have a Starbucks and things like that. We have a Walmart. So I find myself at the Walmart sometimes when I need things, which I don't really enjoy. But there's people, like I've been in Target before and somebody, like, it'll be like a bunch of loud kids running by or something, right? And then the mom's like, we ain't at Walmart right now. You need to stop, you know, like, and so there's just this joke of like, you know, whatever. But I was in Walmart yesterday and I had to go pick up a couple things. And there were just so many people there that it felt, I mean, it was a Saturday too, but there were so many people there that it felt like as I was moving past them, there was like this sludge.
Residue.
Like this residue, this muck, this grunge that was coming off of them, that there were just, and I don't mean this as like I'm vibrating higher than them or it's like, it's not coming from a place of ego, but I think deep down it is in a way, because it's me putting judgment on them when their journey is totally different from my own.
Right.
But there were so many people who like had babies on their hips, or they had, you know, an elderly person, they were like wheeling around in a wheelchair or whatever. And they just were angry, like, and they were yelling at their kids and all this like disorder and disease. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like how awful that must feel. But then are you just numb to it? You know, I don't know. Go ahead, Brenda.
So I was listening to a reader on YouTube. I believe it was sometime this week. No, it may have been last week. And I don't remember her name, so I can't give her credit. I'm sorry. But she was talking about how she sees aura and sees energy when she goes into places. And she was talking about going into Walmart versus going into Costco.
Sure.
And she said when she goes into Walmart, everybody is all these crazy colors and there's like all of this movement and energy. And when she goes into Costco, everybody's gray. And she said it's so weird because she can't see them.
Wow.
Isn't that weird? But I can see that because, what's that?
That's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Right. But like Costco has a certain, you know.
It has a certain order to it.
Right. And so does Target has a certain demographic, I guess maybe is the right word.
Sure.
And then Walmart has a demographic, or, different stores create like what they want to bring into their store. So I thought that was really interesting. And for you to feel that the energy in there, I think is probably on point.
Yeah.
The chaos and the sludge and what everybody's dealing with.
Yeah.
This is Chandra, and it totally resonates with me. There's a person in my family who is just chronically depressed, just kind of comfortable in their misery, let's say.
Yes.
And it's gotten to the point where it is physically painful to be in their presence.
Sure.
Like, I used to be able to do my aura bubble and make it through a visit, but now it's just like I get nervous, even with my energy protected. It starts this like buzzing in my stomach. Like I have to get out of that room.
Yeah.
And that's sad. It's like I want to do the work. I want to level up. I want to explore my spirituality. I want to awaken, but there's a consequence to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think back to this like concept of purging. Like I had a really good therapy session this week, but we were talking about kind of purging relationships that no longer work or serve each other, because you may have a friend or a family member in that example that like they are subconsciously, most likely, but very attached to this victim mentality. And so my therapist is like, I have clients all the time who are like, this is, what I'm going through, whatever. Like, let's say it's a woman and she's in like a shitty relationship with her husband, right? And so the woman's like, and he's just horrible, and he like, forgot my birthday, and we never touch each other anymore. But like all these things, right? That you're like clearly unhappy in your relationship with this person. And so she said that the client will come back and like retell the exact same story 5 or 6 sessions. And so eventually I can't remember the word for it. It's like a reverse psychology technique, but she was like, in relationships like that in your life, like phrase it kind of backwards. So, say to the person, well, so you want a husband who forgets your birthday? Well, no, but you're choosing that every day. And I get that we all have different reasons for choosing things. Like a lot of them are often related to safety or security or stability and financial things and where you live and whatever. But still, every day you're waking up and making a choice to live the life that you're living, right? And so I was like, oh my God, my mind was blown with that.
Get out of my head.
I'm always in there digging around, moving boxes.
Well, because I was, of course, you and I, ADHD, I'm going to have the conversation with this person 10 times in my head before I have the conversation with this person. Yeah, you're gonna write it out. You're gonna rearrange words. So that's what I was doing, and I'm like crazy, just trying to think of how can I explain this to this person, because they've never experienced what I am, and they're not gonna when I say energy, it's not gonna mean anything to them. And that I wrote those exact words. And the other thing that I came up with or that came to me was explaining that I probably love you now and love you more purely than I ever have or did before, when you thought I was quote unquote, what you wanted
right
in our relationship. But I loved the feeling of that. I loved having that come to me. But again, I'm not sure that they'll really understand what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Wow. That's some deep, deep shadow work right there.
It's radical.
It's extreme.
Radical shadows. Get your flashlights out, y'all.
And shining a light on it, a therapist once said, no matter the condition of your relationship, whether you are being abused, whether you're being taken for granted, you are always 50% responsible.
Yes. Yeah.
For that relationship. And that's hard stuff to hear. It truly is.
Well, I mean, that's what I've told this person is you make a choice every day. You wake up, you get out of bed, and you choose whether to be miserable or happy. Happy doesn't just fall in your lap. Happy doesn't happen. You either choose to focus on those things or you don't. So you get to the place that you get to by the choices that you make every day. I was doing some research on Joanna the Healer for our next episode, but she said something that was so profound. She said, you can't get away from yourself no matter how far you run.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
So there's that.
True that.
All right. I think on that note.
That's a closer if I've ever heard one.
Right.
Exactly.
Now that we've depressed you and brought you down.
Well, I think too, like, as we sort of close, I think, just be like listeners at home, just being and I feel like if have stumbled across this podcast, you probably already do that. But every day waking up, it's a choice to either align your vibration to abundance or happiness or security or whatever, or not doing that. And so maybe some of the people in Walmart are aligning their vibration, and maybe some of them are like, well, I gotta wake up my damn kid again, and I gotta take him to Walmart and get all the toilet paper for the weekend. That's what they sound like in my head too, with their sludge energy.
Right. And it's all perspective, because you're going to have the same things happen in the day.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to experience the same things. It's just how you choose to perceive them and how you talk about them to yourself in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you use negative words or positive words.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that was a really good episode. Good discussion to have and some good awareness to have of ourselves. So if you're radical, let us know what your radical behavior is. And we will see you on the next episode. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you for joining us today. Please follow and subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a review. It's so easy to do and such a huge help for us. We appreciate your interactions so much. Want to join us at our table? Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and join our Facebook community. If you've enjoyed this content and wish to support us, take a look at our Patreon page. All information and links will be in our podcast description. Catch you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM. Women's voices amplified.